Hi, and welcome to day three of discussing how to read a book on this edition of a chapter a day. Um, so, today is a relatively easy chapter for you and for me to follow, and I'm really glad because uh, I'm not, I didn't spend a lot of time on this particular chapter. Um, Still, it's a very easy chapter to understand. This chapter is essentially talking about uh, elementary reading, and elementary reading is discussed um, in a more conversational manner than other chapters, which sometimes tend to get a little more technical. So, there's a lot of approaches to reading, and what the author is trying to highlight here is the amount of research that has gone into making basic reading work better, but the lack of focus on advanced reading. So, the author begins by talking about the number of approaches to teach reading. So, there's the ABC method, the phonics method, sight method, and so on. And when he speaks of this, he sort of speaks about how mass literacy is such a big problem, and how so much effort and time is focused on ensuring that uh, mass literacy happens, but advanced reading is sort of neglected. Uh, then the author moves on to describe the four levels of proficiency in elementary reading. Uh, so, the first stage of elementary reading, reading readiness, corresponds to preschool and kindergarten experiences. The second stage is a word mastery, corresponds to the first grade experience of the typical child, um, with the result that the child attains what we can call second stage reading skills or first grade ability in reading or first grade literacy. The third stage of elementary reading, vocabulary growth and the utilization of context, is typically acquired at about the end of the fourth grade of elementary school and results in what is variously called fourth grade or functional literacy, the ability, according to one common definition, to read traffic signs or picture captions fairly easily, to fill out the simpler government forms and the like. So, the final stage of elementary reading is attained at about the time the pupil leaves or graduates from elementary school or junior high school. Uh, it is sometimes called 8th grade, ninth grade, or 10th grade literacy. The child is a mature reader in the sense that he is now capable of reading almost anything, but still in a relatively unsophisticated manner. In the simplest terms, he is mature enough to do high school work. One interesting thing that the author highlights after this is that most people stop after acquiring enough proficiency to do high school work. And that's because our school systems do not focus on advanced reading techniques once you actually move beyond high school. So, in colleges, for instance, there's not a lot of courses aimed at improving the way you read. So, advanced reading techniques aren't discussed enough. And as we've discussed in the previous days, advanced reading is so important because it is essentially a form of unaided instruction. And unaided instruction is really, really crucial if you really want to learn by yourself. And not everyone has access to a teacher, so having these techniques down pat is extremely important. Um, so the next part of the chapter is essentially covering how it takes 4 years of 12 years of basic school education and 4 years of graduate education to sometimes get some techniques of advanced reading down. And even then, there are certain basics that are not right with a lot of people, and which leads them to suffer in how they read, and might eventually even make them feel as if they don't want to read. So, this is essentially what the chapter is about, and I'm going to stop here because there's not much else to it. Tomorrow we'll be discussing the chapter on inspectional reading, and that's a really cool skill to have, and I'm really looking forward to learning that and start skimming through books and start implementing this myself. And here's hoping that you guys are in for the ride too. So see you tomorrow. Good night, or good morning, whatever time you watch it. See you tomorrow.